ladies and gentlemen. It's a chess show on Pot TV. My name is Sasha Star, and I would like to introduce our guest for today, our frequent visitor and great contributor, Dr. Ken Reagan. Welcome to the show.
Right. Thank you very much for having me on again. Wish I
Yeah,
could say great competitor in chess because
mm,
I'd enjoy playing, but great competitor in other things, yes. So,
that's fantastic, fantastic. Ken, I know that you would like to show us one very interesting game, and
yeah,
let's start the program right from that game, which
I've
will
actually,
feature
yeah,
Nepomniachtchi.
sure, let's do that. So I'll
Okay.
share my screen. Um, yeah, there is in fact a an interesting game going on right now. So let's see.
Hmm.
Okay, but I'll try the entire screen.
Okay.
Um, Actually, no. Do you know what? I'm going to go with just a Chrome tab. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
Okay, so you see Gukesh versus Aronyan.
Hmm.
So Aronyan's up a pawn. May have had a slightly larger advantage. This is still pretty large.
Hmm.
So this is a tie-break game. I don't know exactly what time control it is. I guess I could probably find out here. Yes, so play off of two games with 10 minutes and 2 seconds. So it's game 12 in my reckoning. So this is one of the faster kinds of rapid chess. And let's just see what the tiebreak structure is because it should have three people. So in fact, it's a mini round robin, Nepomniachtchi and Aronian next, and then Gukesh versus Nepomniachtchi. And then the survivors from that, if there's more than one, will play a further playoff. But let's see how we got here.
Okay.
So going back to round 9, a very interesting game. Well, all of the other Aronian versus Gukesh, the long-awaited showdown, was drawn quite soon. So they finished with 5.5 out of 9. So that left Nepomniachtchi on 4.5, needing to win to catch up. And he did in a game that exemplifies both enterprising play and the idea of Sitzfleisch. so, so let's take a look. Say, how do you play for a win as black? Mind you, against a player 100 points lower rated, but still, everybody's a strong grandmaster here. So, so if you play with black, the first thing you do is unbalance the position. Okay, so King's Indian defense or Grunfeld both can lead to to attacking play. And in fact, what we have so far, black hasn't committed to the structure and now is going for a more King's Indian defense type structure where white is playing fairly slowly, has not tried to advance through the center with e4, e5. So, but black is still playing normal King's Indian type moves. This is prophylaxis. I don't know what it's prophylaxis against. So I won't pretend that I'm an expert in openings or in this strategy. It just seems that white is going very slowly here. Okay, now b4. This is a very standard way of playing in the normal King's Indian, where there would be pawns on e4 and d5 already. Now, the fact that black has more play in the center, more fluidity in the center, well, I imagine this is still book, so I'm probably just talking very airy means here. But now black hits back in the center right away. Okay, the engine doesn't say any advantage for black here. It does not say a large advantage for white either. So now we have a position that is more in the character of an isolated queen pawn position. But it's funny. Usually when you have the isolated queen pawn, you have your pieces are arrayed for a possible kingside attack or pressure down the e file at any rate. That's not happening here. Okay, so black occupies the d5 square. And now white plays the pawn up to b5. So this is, I guess, what this play is against. It's against the idea of black shoring up control of d5 by playing c6. Okay, so we have an isolated queen pawn position, and there are cases of that which could be fairly drawish, but with a white pawn on b5, I'd say distinctly less so. So black engages the pawn on b5, and now there is no pawn on b5, and White has a weakness on A2. So it's still, no advantage for
It still seems to me that it's this position, this structure is easier to play, in my opinion,
black
for
here.
black.
But
I would say for black,
Yeah.
simply because their pawn structure is better. So long time perspective is better for black. Then, well, both sides have two bishops and knight, and of course, rooks and queen. Never mind. And to compensate for a defective pawn structure, white has to create some kind of attack. But there are no weaknesses in black position at this point. So before to attack, you have to create weaknesses. And how to do it? What's the plan? I'm really at lost right now.
Yeah, and let me just play a little bit of interpretation of engines. White is probably getting a lot of credit for having the only pawn in the center, and good control of E5 and the piece attacking D5. Black does not threaten E4, and only the bishop on G7 is hitting D4 at the moment. If you look at the pieces, White's bishop on B3 is attacking the knight and pressuring F7, and that's probably offsetting Black's really nice bishop on G7, hitting D4 and skewering A1. White's bishop on G5 is a little better than Black's bishop, but Black's rook on A6 is definitely the best rook. And as I say, I think Black game is easier to play. So I'm suspecting this may be a case where the computer should really be evaluating a slight edge for Black, okay, and not giving White a slight edge. However,
also, again, after bishop G5, so this square is no longer available for knight. So even bishop E6 is playable, and Black has nothing to worry about whatsoever.
Right. So we'll see that White, even if you take my view that that Black has a little better of this, we will see that White will quote unquote equalize. So now White starts playing sensible moves. Black shores up D5. Black actually retreated the rook, so maybe it wasn't the case that was the best rook on the board, and connecting the rooks, guarding against whatever White might be whispering of an attack over here. So now Black's in particular with the rook on A8. Black's rook on E8 is not in a pin with the bishop on E6.
Actually, just one observation. Before bishop H6 was played, so bishop H6, right? Mm-hmm. Here, White plays bishop H6, right?
Right.
Okay. Would that be possible to play bishop takes H6?
Bishop takes D5. Oh, for Black to play bishop.
No, for Black, take on H6.
Oh, take on H6. Let's see. Okay, we'll take on H6. I worry about
and Queen F4.
Oh, Queen F4. White goes knight G5.
No. You take bishop.
Yeah.
Queen takes and Queen F4. Oh, you have this move, unfortunately.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, you have to play knight F6, but this is not a position that you want to play.
Yeah, now then E6 falls.
Knight G5. I overlooked that.
Yeah.
Sorry, my mistake.
So that doesn't work. So as I said, there are a little, Black's the main thing I want to point out positionally is that Black, by retreating to A8, is able to recapture on D5 with the bishop, for instance, or move the bishop somewhere else. Okay, so White occupies E5. I mean, I can see why an engine would say White is not worse here. The rook on E5 is nice. White's finally playing the classic isolated queen pawn technique of doubling on the E file. And now, however, as I said, I want to also give credit to Nepomniachtchi. Okay, sometimes in a position like this, if you were defensive minded as Black, you would just cling on to the center and stodge it. But instead, Nepomniachtchi looks for something to do. So even though this creates a weakness on E6, which often is not a good idea, then the bishop is able to be tucked away. And now black also has some nice fluidity with the pawns on the king side. And we'll see very curiously later in the game that the pawns on the king side form the basis of black's winning plan at the very end of the game. Okay, so now we trade. Now again, pawns on king side creep forward, and white's knight now has to go back on a different circuit. Okay, I doubles up on the e file. So a little bit of a repetition here. Bishops come off, and it's around here, a couple moves from now, that it seems clear to me too that white is really not worse either. The engine does say that black is a little better. Let's see, where was this? I think it was right around here. You're right here. Once white played queen b3, this struck me. Okay, white's not worse here. But you still have to find a plan. So the queens came off, and now we see a different theme of the position. Okay, so the different theme of this position is that white cannot afford to trade queens because black's king will become much more active than white's king.
Knight f5 will be a monstrous.
Will be a monster. It's a monster square for the knight. d5 for the king. White will not be able to guard all the weaknesses that are quite far spread apart. So white does have to move the queen, and now black got a very nice center square for his queen. So at this point again, so white cannot afford to trade the queens. So at this point again, the question is, is white really worse here? How is white going to defend the pawn? And it emerges actually that this position is fairly tricky to defend for white. So, I mean, I have the advantage of analyzing with the engine, but in the position where white goes to a lost evaluation, the correct defense is really, according to the engine, is really very difficult to find. So I said, even though the engine is showing 0, 0, 0, like on 3 different moves black can play, or 0, 0, 0 on 3 different moves, and probably more that white can play, there's really a lot more going on in this position. And one thing that's going on is that white's d pawn is probably going to fall at some point. So that says this enterprising play. Well, white played a good move. White has a counterattack with the a pawn potentially. So in particular, let's just observe that if black captures the pawn with the knight, then white is able to counterattack against the b pawn. Okay. And the reality of the position is that the a4 pawn is the best pawn in this position.
Yes.
Okay. Black can counterattack on the king side, but it's not going to be good for anything more than a draw. So it means, however, though, that white does have to play accurately and judge tactics in order to keep the status quo in the position. So it's a knight c4. So black played king e7 to stop the check on d6. Now there's a little worry this is letting go of control of g6. So in particular, white could play queen g8. And you have to see that that when you play queen takes d4 and then getting the knight e3, that you can guard things. And the point is that black can ultimately guard things by knight f8, and if queen g7 check king e8, and black's queen will be on this diagonal guarding f6. So it all holds together. But it again takes enterprise as well as calculation to realize that, well, Nepomniachtchi doesn't have anything to lose. He needs to win to get into a tie first. Therefore, play moves that give you winning chances. Okay, so white might have...
May I ask a question? What about Keymer? How important was this game to him?
Well, Keymer, let's see, had four. It says in Nepomniachtchi, I don't know what this 4 means. Let me just take a look at the standings. Okay. So Keymer had 4 at the time. So Nepomniachtchi had 4.5. So, I mean, it would have been important to Keymer in that a draw, for instance, would have given him an even score in a field average rating 40 elo above his. So
So
that
there's
would
a very strange feeling is that the engine oil all lines show complete equality. It's completely
right.
even position everywhere. Yet almost any move played by white leads to inferior position. So what you do in such situation?
Yes, that's right. What is going on? It's a very much of a point. Well, here at this position here, point here too, you can ask the question: is white worse? Does white have a dynamic equality? But you have to hold on to this. So the question is, do we need to defend D4? If we defend D4, do we defend it this way? Do we defend it this way? If we don't need to defend D4 because we can capture, is this a good building move to play? Um, so it's not a sterile 0.0 position by any means. There's a lot of difficult thinking that white especially has to do. I think King E7 was a hard move for black to verify, but Knight D8 was not hard to verify. So anyway, so white played Queen F4, still equal. Now the engine wants black to simplify by B5, but that's not what Niepo played. Niepo played again with the fact that white cannot afford to trade queens here. So in fact, let's just see how bad does the engine show when you trade queens. Yes, instantly says winning for black.
Instant.
Okay, so that's an important theme in the position to realize. Okay, so white, therefore, now white has had to make a concession. White's queen is no longer deep in black's territory, and black's queen is on a much better square than D7, and white attracted here. And now, as said, the engine's a killjoy. So what the engine says, in order to keep the position super equal, the engine wants to play B5, trade pawns on B5, and take on D4, and we have an utterly drawn position.
Yep.
But Niepo's not going to play like that. Niepo says, okay, I'll keep the position solid. Now, engine thinks white has a force on a pawn advantage by bringing the knight back. But I think actually Queen B4 is a more logical move again. Okay, we're in the realm of equality according to the engine, but once again, white cannot afford to trade queens, so it gives a check. Black's king goes away. Now, black's king is no longer as active as when it was on E7. On the other hand, the configuration improve the location of black's queen relative to white's in some ways. So we'll see that B6 is not as good a square as when white was on B8. Okay, so now black goes for a counterattack finally and tucks the knight away. Okay, so now on B8, white would be able to play, wouldn't be able to play Queen F4 because the knight's attacked. Oops, I had to maybe take a little bit of that back. Wow, Queen E1 is really a good square for black's queen. Okay, so now in order to hold the balance, white has to counterattack in some way. Computer wants white to play D5 and then capture the B pawn. The point of D5 is that white's queen is guarding this square. Okay. Now, incidentally, when I played D5, you saw the evaluation fluctuate to being good for black momentarily and then came back. That's actually the property that I am trying to capture with lower depth search results to judge whether players will shy away from a move or see it right away. So D5, I think, is probably is really the best move in this position. Okay, from a strategic point of view, because you hold on to F2, keep your position together. Even if black is going to go the knight to H6 or E5 and G4 check, again, you'll be double defending F2. So as long as you can see enough far ahead that you're not getting mated, or that you can play F3 to keep the knight out, maybe shed the H pawn.
Ken, I would like to remind to our listeners, there was at one time ex-world champion Tigran Petrosyan, who had a tremendous positional game, and he was generally a player of defense first, prophylaxis first, and attack, and the rest of the game is second and third, or so on. So at that time, there were adjourned games. So any
Yes.
adjourned position, he would ask his second or seconds, do I have a draw? That was his question number one.
Yeah.
So any position he would evaluate, do I have a draw? And before building any attacking plans and trying to something to do, he first was trying to find if he can force a draw, or at least if he has an equal position, which he can hold on to a draw.
Right.
It seems to me that Keimer, he played white pieces. And he probably was thinking about, that would be great if I could win this game. And if I will not win this game, the draw is almost guaranteed, because I have white pieces, because my position is at least equal. But I think at some point he had to ask Petrosian's questions, do I have a draw? And I think that's what he forgot during the game.
Yeah. But I would say also, it's one thing, in the years before computers, it may have been hard to tell, do I have a draw? You really need deep analysis. And that's certainly the case after the next two moves. Now the character of the position has radically changed, because white's getting a draw or a win depends on counterplay with this pawn. This is the best pawn on the board. And usually in a queen ending, it doesn't matter if one side is 2 or 3 pawns ahead. If the other side has a pawn that's close to queening, that's the dominant force of the position.
Right.
So the other thing, I don't know if this is genuine or not, but Keimer was short on time, whereas Niepo was conserving time, if those are really the correct times. So anyway, so black captured the pawn. Now white, actually, this is the critical position. So the most natural thing for white to do is advance this pawn. You're going to jettison h4, and you're going to try to get counterplay. But according to the engine, this is the losing move, a5. And the only way to stay, there are only two ways to stay in the game. One way is to play the queen to b4, which is a move that I do not understand, except that it's keeping black's queen away from e1 and still defending d4. And the other way is to trade off the knights. And this also really does not make much sense to me. I guess the idea is you're going to be able to give a perpetual check against black's king. Well, I don't know. Black's king is going to come out h6, g5. So I don't necessarily understand the point of either move. I'm curious enough to follow the engine's variation here a little. So it wants black to decline this, but what if I just take this? Why is this equal? Okay, so I guess there's a reason this is equal. Okay, well so you can play g5. Okay, I guess the engine's able to see so far ahead, whereas we're going to see very similar positions in the game that are not equal because of a dynamic factor involving black's pawns. Okay, so a5. Losing move. Now we take the pawn check. We go back. Okay. So now here's the surprising thing. According to the engine, except for repeating moves, the only way to win is to play g5. Okay. So this really bears closer study than I've had time to give it since the hour or so since this game finished. Black's counterplay against white's king is going to beat white's counterplay advancing the pawn. So let's just see in particular, why doesn't this move hold? Okay, well, the engine already says checkmate at 45. It's an engine. So the point is that now with the pawn going to g5 and having the pawn on h5, black is going to come.
Yeah, it's a mating net, a very simple one. Knight g4 and checkmate. King h3,
Knight
queen
g4 check, and queen h4 mate.
Yeah, absolutely.
So so instead of that, white played that to pin black's knight. Now black gets the d pawn with check. It's still not clear to me why this should be winning. But the other secret in this position is that white cannot cover the a6 square conveniently because white's queen has to pin black's knight, and you'd have to go back to b6 to escort the pawn to a6, and c5 is not a safe square for white's knight. So now this is the other completion of black's strategy. The mating net now is going to be the pawn coming down to g3, perhaps taking time to play h4, and white cannot even play a6 because the queen pawn will just be lost with check.
Yeah, queen d3.
So, in fact, that's what white did in desperation. And this is chutzpah. Okay, so the funny thing is that a7 is not an escorted square for white's pawn either. So black does not even have to rush to take the pawn. Instead, black is able to get the knight out. Let's see. In fact, so let's see what happens if white plays queen b6. Okay, so now we're trying to escort the pawn to be a queen. Well, now this is the mating net again. That's what the queen on c7 was covering. And you go here, and then I guess knight e5. Let's see what's the knight e5. Yes, so this is black's cavalry is getting there, just ahead of white. Okay, so this now is going to be, so you can make two queens, but you're going to be checkmated on d1.
Right.
So, and never mind that your queen is hanging too. So anyway, so this, this is probably a more accurate move than just queen takes a6. Although there was nothing wrong with queen takes a6, it was winning also. And so white took on c6, and now, okay, guarding the pawn on a6, but now in comes the knight. And even though white can give some checks, well, black's king would just come in, and the king, for instance, cannot be checked on when it reaches h4. So white fell back, but now this is just driving white's king to the edge. Black's king keeps white's pawn out of a7, and
horrible.
Yeah, that knight f3 check was the coup de grace, because then black will queen the g pawn if white captures. Queen h2 check and g2 check. So now, and
it's massacre.
Yes, that's a massacre. Yeah, so Keimer gave up because you can't stop the g pawn, and black has stopped the a pawn. So anyway, so there we are. Yep.
Very interesting.
Fortune favors the brave, and let's see what happened in the first tiebreak game. Aronian did convert that position.
Oh, really? Wow, bravo.
Yeah, black's losing all the pawns on the king side at the end. So now we go to the second tiebreak game, and that is between Nepo and Aronian. So now, well, this probably can be spoken of as another case of enterprising play as black. Okay, so Aronian will win the playoff if he wins this as black, regardless of what Nepo and Gukesh do in the third game. So let's go see how this unfolded. So now asymmetrical English defense. Both players enterprising choice of opening. Black dominant in the center for a while, but white now equalizes the situation in the center. But this is very sharp, and white is not close to castling. So let's see what happens. White is still not close to castling. White is even further from castling. Okay, so on the other hand, black's pieces are not as well coordinated as white's. White castled on the queens. Okay, now black's pieces are equally well coordinated. Okay, and black is here, given by the engine to have a fairly strong advantage. This is just chess, though. Okay, I mean, in positions like these, I don't know if the engine evaluation is that important because both players are able to do things to improve their positions. Black is going to move the king to safety, probably on the other side of the board. Here we come. So I was right. I hadn't seen that move. I guess I had seen in my head that when I looked, Black's king was on the king side. Oh, now White's bishop's on a better square. White's king is on a better square. So as I said, both players able to improve the position. Black decided to take the first action. Okay, Black has an advantage. Well, yeah. So Aronian definitely trying to put pressure on the center and break through. It takes White's rooks are biting on granite on G6, whereas Black's rooks have a lot of play. So, so this was a temporary pawn sacrifice.
2 pawns, no, 1.
1 pawn, yeah. Oh no, 2 pawns. No, 1 pawn. I'm sorry. Yeah, White does not have a B pawn. Yeah, this is very enterprise chess. Okay, so let's see. So wait, did we see it? Where did we see? Oh, 10 more moves have been played. So I forget where it was when I started. I think I'm into new territory here. Okay, so Aronian has a substantial advantage, is what it says. Yeah, so 10 moves have been played because we saw the position at move 30 when I first clicked on it.
Well, knight on c5 is a great piece, and
it's a great piece here. Yeah,
it almost guarantees advantage in any endgame position.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. White's bishops are not attacking a black king on the king side anymore, so they're not so great. Okay, but still, so the engine says equal if White just guards the D pawn. That's what White did. Okay, but Rook G8 was a misstep. Instead, Rook F4, according to the engine. So in fact, actually, the engine says misstep occurred just now. We've been looking. So okay. So anyway, so let's see what we're live now. So we can. This is a 12-minute rapid game, and each player has 4 minutes, so we can possibly see this through to the end of the broadcast. I don't know if they have a delay in force.
So is Nepa trying to draw this game, or he wants to win? What he needs in this game?
Let's see. Well, Nepo plays Gukesh. This is Nepo's first game. So if Nepo draws, then Nepo can tie Aronian again by beating Gukesh.
I see. Okay. So it's very critical for him to be able to hold this position.
That's right.
Although
Yeah.
It's very unclear how he can actually do it.
Yeah. Well, again, it's also the engine evaluations themselves are pretty wild, and a move that is objectively good for Black is going to look less good immediately as it's played, simply because it takes a while for the engine to properly evaluate such an unbalanced position.
Yeah.
So let's just see let me see if I can mentally block out the engine and say what I think here. Well, what I think is that Black's king is safer than White's, unless White can get another piece to the back row. But even then, A6 is an escape hole. On the other hand, one of Black's pieces is completely tied down on D7. On the other hand, White has to defend D6, and it's actually in some positions like this, Black might be threatening to take it.
Well, objectively, the position is obviously lost for White.
The engine now says 3 points.
The engine says that as well. Yeah. So it's just a matter of whether there is a forced win, or you can just make any moves and win. And how they're doing on time, and White is running out of time. So
right, and the engine says G6 is just dropping off, and in fact, this is the kind of position where you often lose on time, because there's no way that White can maintain the the pressure for the balance. So
So you played Queen D4.
yeah, played Queen D4 to guard D6. I guess that's
And how does it help him overall?
just guards D6. Now, the engine says E3 and Rook E4, and then taking on C5. C4 is going to be winning, but instead, Black captured that Rook and captured C4 that way. So
Mhm.
this says this let White back in the game. Oh, how important is time, and whether those clocks are the real times is another question here.
I don't know. I could probably play even moves like A5, B5, and just not to worry about anything.
Yeah, I guess White's position at least makes some sense here. You have the pieces on good squares defending D6. So I has to come up with a plan. I guess getting king to C6 is the chosen plan.
Mm-hmm. Very logical. Now when Nepomniachtchi has 7 seconds.
Yeah. Now here it says that Black gave away a lot of the advantage by allowing White the jailbreak with D7. I don't understand that.
I think no, it's impossible. I thought about Queen takes Rook and D7, but it doesn't work.
Yeah. That's something to look at. Well, let's take a look here. White is down to seconds. Aronian has a useful minute left, so shut off the engineer. And Aronian won. So
yeah.
So he gave either losing too many pawns or gave up. Okay, so now if we just go back here, the opportunity that White had to stay in the game, according to the engine, was to play D7.
Oh, right away, yeah.
Yeah, right away. So let's see now. So now, here's the point, the beautiful point, is if Black captures White's queen, White promotes to knight and is a piece up.
Yeah, beautiful, and wins back the queen.
That's something you can easily not see. Then the other thing that Black can do is capture on D7. And then I guess this may be a misevaluation by the engine, though. So the engine is saying that Black is only slightly better here. Now I know is White able to? I don't know. This looks like this. I don't know. I mean, I would expect Black to win this position.
Yeah, well, Black is better, and but it's still
on ahead. Queen endings are not as drawish as people think they are.
Yeah,
I mean,
one Grandmaster, when you see that Black can advance their pawns and White can advance its F pawn. So I forgot who says that it's much easier to push one White pawn than 2 Black pawns. It takes much less time.
Yeah, maybe that's the key point, that White can push the F pawn. Yeah, I'll maybe agree with you there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So that means Aronian is a clear winner of this tournament.
That's right. We can congratulate Aronian on on victory in this game. So final position is this. So with Black completely winning. So the last game does not even matter, at least not as far as the disposition of first place. Okay.
It's going to be a loser's fight.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So okay, well, so Aronian found the Jets when he needed to after stumbling.
Yeah, finally. Well, it's very interesting, and again, thank you very much for showing us these games. It was very, very entertaining, very interesting.
And one other thing to congratulate Aronian for is he recently became a father.
Yeah, that's another thing. So everything comes together. He's a father. He's winning the tournament. It's a great time of his life, I guess. Mm-hmm. So thank you very much again, Ken. And looking forward to see you hopefully next week
Right.
If you will not be able to make it, then
Next week. No, I sent an email. Next week
Yeah.
I will not be available. But
okay. So then
Okay.
the following week. Thank you very much.
thank you. Yeah.
And all the best to all our listeners. Bye bye, everybody.
Bye bye.